Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Vincent.
I'm Janet, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and
whatever we feel like. Now today is going to be a controversial episode.
Oh, so controversial.
What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about digital versus traditional.
So controversial.
Which is better?
Which is better? It's not really that controversial, but I've been seeing it a lot. I pitched this topic to Janet, and it's been talked about tons of times before. But because people are really getting into drawing on Procreate and doing digital art, and a lot of people have been just jumping on doing art and posting it on social media, this debate has been going around where people either talk about, don't discredit me because I do digital art, and don't do this and that. And I thought it would be a great idea to talk about that in this episode of the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast.
Yeah, and I thought it was a great idea. I was kind of iffy on it at first, but I mean, I trust you. I believe that people are really having this strange debate.
Okay, so the reason why I pitched it to you was because I saw it like a few days in a row, like people talking about it and venting their feelings on TikTok. I saw a few Instagram posts about it too. So I think this is something that's on a lot of people's mind, and because this whole boom of people posting their art and showing off to people, there's a lot of people who are doing the independent artist thing that you're doing. I thought it would be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't just for the art niche. Obviously, we're artists. I used to work at Disney, and now I'm trying to do the independent artist thing. And I'm
still doing the typical job thing of going to work 9 to 5 and all that stuff.
But I realize this pertains to all creative fields, whether you are a musician, or a filmmaker, or a writer, because there's this debate for all those niches. Right.
So the whole argument between digital and traditional isn't just specific to the the typical drawing, painting community, where it seems like it's the biggest issue because digital has become the most approachable mainstream option for making art these days. More mainstream than picking up Crayola crayons and drawing. It's so much more. You could do it on your tablet or your phone. And this is an issue that a lot of industries face. This is not just relegated to drawing and painting. This is also filmmakers who are struggling between choosing digital or physical film reels, or bands recording their music analog with tape in a garage in a room, and all of that sound bleeding together, and just getting that rich analog in studio feel, versus Pro Tools, which is you could have a million takes, you can have you can tweak things, you could tweak pitches, you could do whatever you want, whatever you imagine, but the possibilities are endless. So, and
even writers too.
Yeah.
There's the debate between either writing with a pencil and paper versus a word processor, or even people who still type with typewriters.
Yeah. And we'll get into that. And it's something that everyone's arguing about. Not just the simple art community who just draws. This is something ever since the dawn of digital medium, it's been kind of an issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are old fashioned and all that stuff are very, very into this topic.
And so we wanted to do this sort of debate style podcast where I'm going to choose one side and you're going to choose another side. But before that, we want to present our true feelings.
Right.
So, I like traditional art.
Oh, so you're going first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like traditional art more.
Okay.
What about you?
I liked, obviously, traditional art more.
So we're both kind of biased on the side of traditional art.
Right. And it's not like we use digital medium our entire professional career. We haven't had a single gig where we have to draw traditionally for anyone outside of a commission. Yeah. So we mostly use, so you're getting the opinions of people two people who are proficient at both,
Yeah.
and who honestly don't see this as an issue.
But we'll
like,
get into that later.
We'll get into that later. But for me, yes, I love digital, and I've come from a time where young artists these days are so lucky that they get to, just open up their phone or tablet and then download Procreate or whatever sketching.
I choked up, but okay.
It's okay. Or whatever drawing app, they could just find it and start drawing. Whereas when we were young, when you and I were growing up, we only had tablets, and those tablets were very, very hard to find. You had to buy them online. You couldn't buy them on Best Buy or anything.
Yeah, and they were expensive.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I've always wanted to draw on a tablet. When I was in middle school, and now everyone's able to draw on their phone.
Yeah. Some people, I've seen some young kids who don't have an iPad, but they have a smartphone. They'll use a free app on whatever, and they'll draw on that. It's crazy.
Right. So my feelings are, yes, I think traditional is really important, and I get really romantic about it. I've talked about in previous episodes how I get romantic about my palm, cruising the bond paper, and the sound of the pencil. All of that stuff I'm very romantic about. But these days for me, and I want you to answer this too, for me, the ratio in which I'm doing traditional versus digital, I'm doing 90% of my work digitally for work.
Mm-hmm.
And I barely draw traditionally anymore at this point. It used to be when I used to draw in my sketchbook more frequently, it used to be a nice 60% digital, 40% traditional.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point where I'm just I'm doing a lot of work right now,
Mm-hmm. and
that's how it is. But how about you? You've been doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of traditional work. There are ebbs and flows when you start working professionally, because corporate work requires efficiency and speed, and the tools of the trade are Photoshop and Storyboard Pro and whatever digital program, because that's just industry standard. What eventually happens when you start working for a year or so or more is a lot of times you stop drawing traditionally altogether, just like you said.
When we were doing comic book conventions, a very highly esteemed animation designer saw us and was really happy that we were drawing.
He was a veteran.
Someone we look
artist.
up to a lot. Yeah.
Still working at, I think, Disney right now.
Yeah.
But he was really admiring the fact that we knew how to use a brush to ink with. We were drawing traditionally and exercising those skills.
Which is an unusual concept for us, because this is all we do, and we went to a school where, even though there was a lot of digital art going on, there was so much traditional art going on at the same time. So for someone to say that, it's hard. It became really hard for me to accept what he was saying until recently, when, you look at Instagram and almost every post is a digital painting or digital drawing.
But there was a moment where I think I'd been working for a year or so when I went to a figure drawing workshop or something for the first time in ages. We had gone regularly before we got hired, but then we had stopped because we got so busy, and we got hired, so what was the point? And that's the mistake. You should never, once you start working professionally, do not stop drawing traditionally, because what happened was we were really rusty. And when we went to the drawing workshop, it was like we were students again, and even though we could make these beautiful pieces of art at work digitally, we couldn't, for the life of us, figure out why we were so terrible with a pencil and a paper, or a Sharpie and a paper. So ever since then, I started committing to, no matter how busy I got, I always drew traditionally a little bit. And now that I have taken a career path change and doing the independent artist thing, I had two options. I could either make a lot of work digitally and sell prints of it, which I'm still going to do.
Of course.
But something that I really wanted to do, especially knowing that I don't know if I felt rusty after 4 years in animation, but I did feel like I have a lot more growing to do if I want to become the like world-renowned illustrator, independent artist that I want to be one day. So I knew that I needed to practice a lot traditionally, and on top of that, um, I just want to get better, and a lot of other reasons that we can get into once we start the debates part of the.
But
podcast.
what percentage are you doing?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Like 100. Like I haven't touched digital at all. So
I don't
like
think you have. Like the
yeah.
most digital that you do is graphic design for, thumbnails and Instagram posts and all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's not real. I mean, it is image making, but it's not the
Right.
art illustrations that I normally do.
Right. Whereas because I want to make a clear picture for everyone that this is not an issue for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, when you were working at DreamWorks, let's say, you were doing, it was the opposite. You think you were doing 90% digital because you were doing work for DreamWorks on Dragons, and then in between during downtime or after work you'd be doing Photoshop prints for comic book conventions.
Yeah. The only time we were ever do traditional work, I would ever do traditional work, was when we had conventions on our plate, and we saw prints, which at the time we did digitally, but then we needed to create this whole portfolio of commission samples that we would sell on site. So that was the only time I ever really got the chance. We both would get the chance to do traditional art. So we would sketch and ink. And you forced yourself to paint traditionally every once in a while. I hadn't painted in forever.
Right.
With actual paint. So it really was like 10% or less when I was working at full time at a studio.
Right. And you don't have any, if I asked you to draw and paint something traditionally, if I asked you to go on Photoshop and paint and draw a character, you can do it.
Yeah.
And if I asked you to paint and draw a character in gouache, no trepidation, no hesitation, you would be fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because honestly, for people like us, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing, partly because of how we were trained.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but like because we went to a school like Art Center, and we went through the major that we went through, illustration, we were not trained to be animators. We were not even really trained to be visual development designers or 3D modelers or any training towards a specific career path in entertainment, Hollywood, that kind of thing. We were trained to simply be
good picture makers. Yeah, that's it.
Good visual storytellers,
right.
Whatever industry we decided to pick.
Right.
Because the history of Art Center, we don't have a history of animation. We have a history of advertising, printmaking, commercials, every other industry, and it kind of includes entertainment. There are quite a bit of Art Center people who eventually moved from advertising to and print illustration to Hollywood and animation, simply because commercial arts was where the money was at.
Yeah. And then culture shifted, and then things went to corporate animation.
Yeah.
And less so illustration because of photo bashing and photo
photography and trends.
Yeah.
But because of that, our curriculum was never geared specifically towards animation, which is very different from
someone who goes to CalArts, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think there's pros and cons to whatever kind of track, but I think since we were so focused on being good picture visual storytellers, I think that gave us the tools to just look at digital and traditional just as tools. Like they're all a means to an end. Whereas in like, and we'll get into it. Whereas in like, people gravitate towards one or the other simply because they do it the most.
Yeah.
It seems like, right?
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is that it seems kind of like a insecurity talking, where you feel put down regardless of what it is. If you're a traditional artist or if you're a digital artist, you feel like other people are putting you down for being whatever you are. And it's like, oh, I'm good. I'm valuable, and like I get it. Like people, it comes from a place of like inferiority and trying to like prove to everyone that like I'm valuable. But at the end of the day, like one of our teachers in school used to say, we're just pushing dirt around
with a stick. Yeah.
We're like cavemen.
So for me, the worst position, and then we could talk about this, but like just before we start getting into the debate, I just want to say like the worst position to be in is if you're in one camp. Let's say you're the digital person or you're the traditional person. The worst position to be in is to be on that camp simply because, and you have to gut check, like really ask yourself, are you in that camp because you're uncomfortable to do the other thing? And if that is true, we're not saying that you're doing things wrong, because everyone has to start somewhere. Yeah. For us, at least specifically for me, especially when you met me, I was very, very against doing digital. Up until college, I didn't know how to use Photoshop until I was the age of 20, 21.
Yeah, I had to teach you.
You had to teach me. And now I have to teach you a lot of stuff because I've had so many freelance gigs where I was forced to like just...
The tables have turned.
Yeah.
Okay, so story time.
Sure.
For when we first met.
Yeah. Oh, God.
we were taking this background design class.
It was called Style. And the thing about Style is like, it's basically we have 3 weeks to, basically imitate a style where it's like, it could be Hanna-Barbera to like something more modern. And we could either choose to do traditional or digital. I mean,
I didn't think it was a choice.
You could. But if you were crazy, you choose traditional.
The teacher never said that. He was just like, you just
he
do this.
Did.
I don't remember.
And he hinted that like, if you did it traditionally, he'd like you more. Like,
I don't remember this at all.
He does.
Because everyone in the class did it digitally.
That's right.
And so I remember our first assignment was, I think, to imitate the style of 101 Dalmatians, right. I think.
It was.
And I remember you, like, I was really friendly, and one of the things I would do in college, every time I went into a new class, was, even though I was really shy, I knew that I needed to make friends. So I would go up to every single person and introduce myself and make friends and whatever. So I did that to everyone. So I knew most of the people in the class, but I didn't know who you were. So I went up to you and I was like, "Hi, I'm Janet," and you like gave me the cold shoulder. And then I looked at like your work, and you were drawing your background with this. We use Progresso. These Progresso woodless pencils.
It's basically, if you could imagine your typical, color pencil. It's the stuff inside the color pencil. There's no wood housing or anything. It's just the lead encased in plastic. Yeah. That's it.
And I saw you were drawing it traditionally. You were laying out the perspective, and then you were like wire framing everything to make sure everything had volume. And you were doing multiple passes. So you would do like the perspective pass, and then you would do the detailed pass, and then you'd do like the stylization pass. So you had all these papers are like laid out on the table. And I was so surprised. I was like, why are you doing it traditionally? And then I don't remember what you said. You were so mean to me. You like told me off or something. And I was like, oh, okay.
I was really mean.
You were so mean. And I was like, oh, I guess he doesn't like me. So I just like went back to my seat and was like, I guess I'm friends with like everyone in the class but him.
But then the week after, I asked you what the homework was. So that's
nice. I didn't even remember who you, like I blocked you out of my memory.
Wow.
I was just walking down the hallway and you're like, hey, what's the homework again? And I was like, for what class? Because I didn't remember where you were from. I thought you were just some guy asking me, like you mistook me for someone else or something. And then lo and behold, years later, like that's not when we got together.
No, we had a class a long, like at least 2 or 3 years before we got together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I didn't, when we actually met for like the second time, I thought that was the first time we met because I had blocked you out of my memory. You're so mean to me. I didn't want to. I guess I just didn't want to remember that.
I have no idea why we're talking about this. So lately I've been getting back into guitar again. As you've noticed, I'm not wearing that brace, and it's simply because I screwed up my right wrist by playing guitar a lot and sitting not well. If you want to learn how to sit well, watch Bam Animation's video on how to sit well and not get carpal tunnel. Since I did not watch that video, I got carpal tunnel and it almost set in until I bought the proper brace. But since I'm getting back into guitar, I have been listening to It's Not My Cross to Bear, an autobiography by Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers. My favorite band right now, my favorite classic Southern rock band right now. A few words about Greg Allman. He's the piano player for the Allman Brothers, and his brother is the great Dwayne Allman, who was the amazing slide guitar player for the band. He's, you hear Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix as, the obvious names of the best guitarists out there, but I think Dwayne Allman is one of the most underrated guitar players because of his very lyrical, memorable guitar lines. And the Allman Brothers is a fantastic, I think it's a 6 or 7 piece band. It's a huge band, 2 drummers. And they've had a long, turbulent history dealing with all sorts of stuff, race relations and dealing with managers and getting scammed and internal band conflicts and drugs and women. So if you want to learn more about the Allman Brothers Band, Greg Allman and the Allman Brothers, and if you want to get inspired by an amazing artist's life and his brother's journey, he and his brother's journey, I think.
Yes.
Please take a listen to It's Not My Cross to Bear by Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers.
It's a crazy...
You listen to some of it.
Yeah, it's crazy. His life is amazing.
Yeah, you would laugh all the time,
yeah.
Especially his stories about
they should turn it into a movie. So if you want to listen to this crazy, crazy story, go to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast to get your very own Audible trial. On us, you get 1 free audiobook credit, as well as 2 free Audible original credits. So 3 audiobooks in total. You get access to podcasts, meditation, news outlets, and you get access to thousands and thousands of audiobooks, including that audiobook that Vincent just told us about. And it's on us at no cost to you unless you decide to sign up for Audible. It helps us out. And go to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast to support us. And if you want to support us, check out our merch too.
And please drop a like below.
Over there.
There. Yeah.
Drop us a like if you like the podcast so far. It helps us out. Please and thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so this is how we're going to do this podcast. We are going to debate 5 topics. And I have these 5 topics on these little flashcards. And then we are going to draw them in the blind, pick up a flashcard, and then debate a topic. And then what's going to happen is we read the topic out loud. We have 5 minutes, right?
Yes, we have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes to present and wax poetic about why we think the other is better. And we have to basically take turns, and then we have each a minute to rebuttal each other. And then you guys will have to decide basically who won each round, because we don't have a third party except for you. So you guys are going to be our third party. After every round, you tell us in the comments, who won that round.
Yeah.
So.
And I will take the side of traditional, and then you will take one for the team, play devil's advocate, and argue for digital as best as you can.
Digital people, you're in good hands.
Just because you're actually on my side doesn't mean you're gonna
No.
You're gonna like what's it called? Pull punches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pull punches. Definitely, I'm gonna give
Give
you a
it
run
your
for your
all,
money.
yeah.
That's right. Okay, so let's toss a coin
Okay.
right here. I have what they call a quarter.
What else do they call it?
I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna flip this quarter,
Okay.
which is an American tradition to know who goes first. You have precisely a 50% chance
Heads.
to get heads or tails. You choose heads.
I choose heads.
Okay. Ooh, tails, motherfucker.
Okay.
Sweet. Okay, so here we go. We have a timer right there. Here is my pile of cards. I'm going to shuffle them, and I'm going to pick the first topic, and then I have 5 minutes to basically wax poetic about that subject. And then once I start my first word, you press start on the timer.
Okay.
Oh my God. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so what you do is you pick one of these cards and then you read it aloud to me.
Okay. Okay, so our first topic is versatility/utility. Which medium is most useful and accomplishes a lot?
Okay, all right. Give me 1 second. I think I know. Okay, perfect. I think I know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
All right. So I think digital is the most versatile because you are allowed to use as many layers as possible. You are allowed to, do your lay-in, and then you could do like a tight line drawing. And if you screw up with either of them, you can basically throw another layer on top and start over again. So what this allows you to do is if you're doing digital art, you can have as many passes, as many versions as possible. So say you have a job and you have to design a character for a new cartoon show. Well, you could spend forever with like a caveman with a pencil and a paper like you, drawing everything out, physically, and then like you have to erase and all that stuff. Whereas then like if you do it digitally, you can copy and paste. You can fill in layers really quickly using the lasso tool. You could fill in shapes really quickly with all sorts of tools like the pen tool. There's just more versatility. And when you have more versatility, you're allowed to do more. So since you're allowed to do more, you can basically have infinite copies of an image. So if you're a convention person and you like to, make fan art of stuff, instead of just making one laborious painting like somebody from the 1600s, just making one painting and spending your whole life on one thing, and then finally it comes out and you only have the one thing. Whereas if you're a digital artist, you could do that one thing really quickly, have different variations, and then you can print them out and then you can sell them to the masses, and there you go. So versatile. And the best part about digital as well is that it's so versatile. You can get into, all sorts of weird looks. I have like what is this? 2 more minutes? 3 more minutes. You can get into style really well, right? Like you could basically mimic the style of gouache. You could mimic the look of oil, albeit like it'll take a lot of skill and effort to make it look like 1-to-1 exactly like gouache or oil. But with digital, you can mimic all sorts of styles. And with digital, I feel like digital is so versatile because you could do so much with it. I feel like I'm going to yield my time because it's like how much more is there to say? Like you could make infinite copies. You could like pull stuff from photos and turn them into matte paintings. You could do so much stuff. And I think digital, the only limitations are what your imagination can come up with, because you're literally allowed to do anything you want. Your only limitation is what you can come up with and the amount of time that you have. But the best part about digital is it saves so much time as well. So yes, digital is so much better than traditional in terms of versatility. And I yield my time and I beat your ass in 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
Okay. So, my turn.
Okay, your turn.
How do I lap? Oh, sweet.
Oh, we got an order of
Got an
$100.
order. Sweet.
Sweet.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yay.
Okay.
Okay, so how did I do?
You did fine.
Okay. All right. So you argue for traditional now.
Okay. I'm going to argue for the versatility and utility of
Traditional.
traditional.
Ready? Start.
Okay. Start talking? Okay.
Yeah.
So, traditional art, even though you are limited in your options of what you're supposed to do, that is the value. Don't make faces at me.
Well, I'm not making
You're
faces.
distracting me.
Oh.
It's because of your limitations, you can make better work and faster and quicker. And, you talked about mimicking oil, mimicking paint. Well, why mimic when you can actually do it? Actually, you don't have to spend so much time. I'm so distracted.
You're doing great. Continue.
You don't have to spend all this time trying to figure out the textures that you're never going to quite get digitally. You can just execute traditionally. So because you're limited with the tools that you have, the colors that you have, and the things that you're able to do, like you can't do all these neat tricks with your digital textures and your color dodge and all your stuff, you will most likely have to think cleverly to be able to accomplish all that in a shorter amount of time with smaller amount of choices. And if you have the right materials, you can practically make and paint or draw or create on whatever you can think of. So you can paint on a car, you can paint on a billboard, you can paint on a building. You can make all these things that you can't really accomplish digitally. Not really. You're still going to have to print it out and paste these things on. And you talked about using photos. That came from traditional media where people would collage and then paint on top, and photo bash is what that came from. God, this 5 minutes is a long time.
I know. You can yield your time if you want.
No, I will use all my time.
Okay, go. Filibuster away.
And just because you are limited in whatever medium that you choose doesn't mean that you can't. You are versatile in that you can do drawings, you can do paintings, you can do collages, you can do sculptures, you can do all these different things that you can't really do digitally unless you have all these other apps and all these other skills involved. Like, if you wanted to mix 3D with your art, you would have to have Maya or ZBrush or all these other apps in order to accomplish. And then in my opinion, it would take a lot more time. And given the amount of time to make certain things, I bet a traditional artist can top a digital artist every time in terms of how long it would take to do something.
It's crazy. Okay, go on.
God, I can't think of another point, so I yield my time.
Okay, I think it's very funny that you saved time for the very, 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 very last part of your argument, because it's not true. Like, how could that possibly be true that somebody who has digital medium, who has literally every tool, every action in the palm of their fingertip, and the palm of their hands and the tippy toes of their fingertips. Oh my God, I have to restart this time. Hold on. It's really funny that you chose to say at the very last second that time is not an issue, because I think time is the most important, most crippling issue for people who do things traditionally. You have so much You literally have to move your wrists and do this like a million times, whereas I can just like, select the silhouette and just press, paint bucket tool, and then boom, I'm done. And I think it's really ridiculous that you think that that how could traditional be any bit more faster than digital? It just seems preposterous because you have so many shortcuts, so many things that you could do so quickly on your fingertips, and I think you're a ridiculous person for saying that. Okay, I yield my time.
Well, time is the reason why I say I lapped, so it's fine.
I gotta get it.
Okay.
Stop touching it.
Okay.
Stop. Okay.
Okay, so time is actually faster with traditional.
How?
Because of the limitations. Because when you have infinite options, you're going to choose from red to green to blue to desaturation, whatever. All I have to do is know exactly how to execute and do it with the tools that I have in front of me. I don't have to spend all this time, for example, precisely lasso tooling whatever before you paint bucket, and then after you paint bucket, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna change the color a million times until you're happy with it. I just go this color, mix, paint, and all this brush strokes that I have to do is still faster than all the indecision and all the choices that you have and all the layer styles and everything that goes into making a digital image. And I have the luxury of my time is up.
30-second rebuttal. Here we go.
No.
30-second rebuttal. I said rebuttal. That's funny. Can you believe she actually just said that mixing paint is faster than selecting a color from the color picker or from the color wheel? Can you believe this person from Disney actually said that? She said that you could do that and that's faster. I mean, do you not have a proper concept of time? Do you know how much easier it is to just, fool around with the hue saturation value thing and then just find the color that you want and then put it on and you're done?
Wait, do I have to rebuttal now too?
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Oh my god.
Ready? And your first word.
Okay. Yeah, because your color picker, it seems easy, but then you're choosing 10,000 colors. I've done it before where I pick a color, not quite right. I pick another color, not quite right. And then before you know it, an entire hour has passed. When if I had done this traditionally, I would have been done 30 minutes ago. Oh, I have 15 seconds left. Yeah, I yield my time.
All right, that's the end of round one. Let us know in the comments who won, because I would love to know. I have no idea. Okay, so since I went first, okay. I'm going first again, right? So
I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go first every time.
Okay.
All right, so we finished round 1 out of 5.
Okay.
So I guess I'll choose out of the pile. Let's remove. Did you remove the one? Okay, perfect. So let me choose, I guess.
This is fun.
No, I'm happy you think so.
I drank too much caffeine before this, and now I have heartburn.
It's okay.
Okay.
You're doing great for someone who has heartburn.
I'm also extremely hyper, too.
It's okay. So read it to me.
Okay. This next topic is learning. Which media is best for beginners/hobbyists to learn how to make art?
Oh, this is so great. I'm going to totally own you on this one.
No, you are not.
So the question, what is it? Basically, what's the best thing to learn on and to get the most drawing mileage, basically?
What's better to learn with, digital or traditional?
Okay. All right, get ready. I think I could get ready.
Okay.
I think traditional is one of the best ways for you to learn about art.
Wait, you're supposed to argue digital.
Oh, I think digital.
Let's start over.
Let's do that again.
Okay.
I I think digital medium is the best medium for you, a young artist or hobbyist, to learn art. And this is why. I think it's important because and really useful because it's really, really forgiving. I think there's a lot of things that you have to deal with. Like, for example, if you want to learn how to paint, you first have to choose which medium. So, like, you could use acrylic, you could use oil. And if you chose oil, you have to, get Gamsol. You have to get rags to wipe your brushes with. It's just so cumbersome. Whereas in with digital, you can learn basic painting concepts that anybody from your average animation person to Richard Smith uses to create beautiful paintings, and all of the painting concepts you could just learn and adapt to with digital without the cumbersome thing of like waiting for paint to dry, which is awful. With digital paint, you never have to wait for that thing to dry. You just put it on and then you're done. And I think that's really helpful for painting, especially because there are so many harmful fumes from Gamsol and oil, color, and pigments that will rot your brain cells. So the reason why, if you think Jen is slow, you know why. And I think it's really important to learn digital for drawing because it's such a slick thing. Drawing with let's say your simple round brush with a tapering to the tip on digital, it's as close to just a basic Sharpie drawing or ink drawing as possible, because it's literally like you're doing a pen drawing, because digital is so. Digital styluses, I guess, are very, very powerful, very sensitive, that you can literally make any stroke that you would traditionally onto a digital sheet of paper or a tablet or whatever it is. And when you draw on digital with, let's say, doing doodles and stuff, you can make so many layers that'll help you draw the character better, or give you more opportunities to explore more. You get to explore more options with design, because you can do layer on top of layer on top of layer on top of layer. And if you were a person who has never touched any art utensil, it would be very, very intuitive for you to get any drawing processing program and then pick a color, or pick a drawing utensil and then just draw. It's very simple, that even young kids are doing it on their tablets. Like, you see kids and toddlers in restaurants or schools all the time messing around with tablets, and they know how to do it intuitively, because the idea of sitting there with your color pane and your drawing utensil pane and then your blank sheet of paper, it just makes sense. So I yield my time, because it just seems so obvious that if you want to learn how to draw, drawing on your iPad or whatever it is so much more advantageous and easy, because it's not cumbersome and it's very, very neat and tidy. It's very, very great to use digital.
Freudian slip.
Yep. I'm doing such a great job for you, digital people.
Everyone hates you.
It's okay. I'm doing a great job.
Okay. So, are you gonna start the
Okay, so do you know what you're gonna say? So it's what's better to learn on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
So, I think traditional is the best medium to start learning any kind of creative art with, because there are studies that straight up just say that it's really important, the physicality of using your hands and transporting the knowledge that you're learning from doing into your brain. There are actual scientific studies that prove that. And with something like drawing and painting, for example, it's more about quantity over quality. Yes, it's more accessible, or so you say, that kids know how to use an iPad intuitively, but what's more accessible is a pencil and a paper. And when you draw with a pencil and paper, you you know when to stop better than when you are drawing digitally. Same thing with painting. The problem with digital is you can do and fix a drawing forever, erase and undo, and fix and fix and fix. And at the end of the day, it would have taken you a really long time to finish that one drawing. Whereas with a pencil and paper, you can draw as much as you want. You can make 100 drawings in the amount of time it took for you to digitally make that one. And in terms of learning, it's all about quantity over quality. It's all about getting your first 100,000 bad drawings out of your system before you become a master. It's about that 100,000 hours or whatever it is for you to become a master. So for learning, traditional and the physicality of traditional is better for your brain and better for learning. In terms of painting, when you're color picking something, you can't learn the science of color mixing. And you don't truly know how to do that if you're just spinning color on a color wheel. And you need to be mixing colors on a palette. You need to understand how cadmium red interacts with ultramarine versus all these other colors. And you need to know the different proportions and all that, and you learn that intuitively by simply mixing paint with a brush, traditionally taking the time, and yes, breathing in the fumes, and enjoy losing some brain cells. That's the only way you're going to learn how true color science works. And there are things optically that you will never be able to see when you're picking color through a screen. There are things that you can only see when you are out in the wild, mixing color, painting from life. And to learn how light works, to learn how your eye responds to color, and instead of using shortcuts to make luminescence or color dodge and all these things, you need to learn how to do that traditionally first, with no shortcuts, with no Control Z. When you are limited to simply your abilities, that's how you know how good you are. That's how you know how fast you are learning, or what level you are in terms of your art or your creativity or whatever. Because digitally, you will never be able to really get the handle of that. Because if you give any digital artist a piece of paper, if they haven't drawn for a while, they're not going to be able to match the skill of a traditional artist.
Can you believe what she said?
I yield my time.
First of all, let's start this. Let's round that.
Okay.
First of all, I think it's quite preposterous what you're saying right now about digital artists, because I think digital artists can draw fine when you ask them to draw with a paper and a pencil. Also, I think it's ridiculous that you said something like you can get more done, like you can have more quantity over, is that what you said?
Yeah.
More quantity over quality.
quality.
That's ridiculous, because you could do so much more. Like you could cover more ground, like I talked about. Like instead of having to mix paint, you could cover more ground and paint more paintings. Like let's say you're painting something from scratch with like normal traditional utensils. That's going to take you, like, let's say an artist 3 hours, whereas in a digital painting, just because of the nature of the medium, you could get it done in, like, let's say an hour. How could that possibly be? Whereas in, like, a person can do more paintings with a digital medium than traditional. It's ridiculous. And yeah, woo, right on time.
Because if you get really proficient at doing things traditionally, you only need an hour to finish a painting, finish a study. You only really need 3 to 5 minutes to finish a drawing. I dare any digital artist to put a timer on themselves, 3 to 5 minutes. Are you able to make a beautiful drawing that holds up on its own compared to an artist with a piece of paper and a pencil, a piece of charcoal, or a Sharpie? Yes. And they will just it translates better when they go from traditional to digital eventually. It really is a better learning tool, medium. It's a better learning medium. I yield my time, my 10 seconds.
Okay. So those are all our thoughts on the value. What was it?
Which medium is better to learn
Which
with?
medium is better to learn with? Now let us know in the comments below who you thought had the better argument or which side or camp you're on.
I'm getting sweaty.
I need a pee. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Okay.
This is really fun. Round 3.
Sweaty.
All right.
This is a workout.
This is a workout. So you pick one out of the last 3 cards in the pile
Okay.
and then read it out loud to me, and I guess I'll argue since I won the coin toss.
Professional work. Which medium is better for the artist that wants to make money?
I think digital medium is the best medium for companies and professionals to make money because you can simply make a lot of it, make a lot of the art really quickly at very, very, very little cost. And you're going to have a very hard time arguing that because the nature of digital medium means that you can make as many copies for free for as little cost as possible. Like no input. You barely have to spend time on making a copy. You could just like make a copy and then you're done. So which means that like, let's say your company outsources to the Philippines, you can do something, make a copy, show it to the Philippines, they get to improve on it. And then there's that and that and that. Whereas in like, if you were to do it in the Stone Age where people had to mail things to each other and rely on mail to get things to places. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Like who has the time to do that? I don't even know anybody alive who still does that. Like that's ridiculous. So you're able to do so much with digital medium that you can make so many copies and you could do it really quickly. The best part about digital medium is that it's very, very, very fast. There are shortcuts for a lot of things. There are a lot of ways you can fill in spaces with art, with color, with drawing or whatever, whereas then it would have taken you a lot longer to do that stuff analog. So I think the sheer ease of making art with digital, the sheer fact that you're able to make different, like all sorts of duplicates and copies of the thing, the fact that producers don't have to like this makes the cost of whatever it is from doing a animation to doing a design for an album cover, like this makes it all just simply very easy. Whereas in like if you were to if I were a client and I had to choose between a digital and traditional artist, I would choose a digital artist because I know they're faster, I know they're probably a little bit cheaper, and I know because they're fast I don't have to invest so much as a client onto the project. Whereas then if it was a traditional person who, I don't know, who draws their stuff with pencil and does all sorts of things with paint, that's going to take a lot longer, which means me as the client has to invest more money to make my project happen. So I would much sooner hire a digital artist versus a traditional artist for since I'm most concerned with speed and efficiency. So yeah, I think everybody knows that I won this, so I will yield my time.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me gather my thoughts.
Okay.
So I'm not going to argue about price because when you are a traditional artist, because of the cost of materials, because of the uniqueness of what you offer, you do charge more. So traditional artists are more expensive. But that doesn't mean traditional art has stopped existing in professional work. Traditional artists still exist in very, very specific industries because specifically things like children's book illustration, poster, gig design work, mural work, and special event spaces like murals and designing the exterior of a shop or whatever. Partly because traditional art in the professional workspace, because it's more expensive, because it's more unique, is a specialty item. It's going to be more expensive because not every industry needs them, but when they do need them, it's because of the uniqueness of what they offer. For example, children's children's books, the best children's books are all made traditionally. If you didn't already know that, the award-winning children's book authors, they all make their work traditionally, and then they digitize it after effect to reproduce the work. And it is in those specific industries and exhibition/physical event spaces that are really heavy in the traditional artwork medium, simply because it's a very, very unique experience. So if you want to be a freelancer who does traditional work, it is a lot more, in my opinion, lucrative, for one, because you can charge a lot more, and you get a little bit more of an individual voice when you are hired for that work, because usually you don't have as much competition, honestly. There are not too many people who are sought after traditional artists, illustrators, because it is such a dying art form that it has become the specialty thing that when they do need someone like you, and there are still plenty of opportunities for traditional artists to find work, it's just not going to be necessarily at a big corporate animation studio or something like that. It's going to be more mural work, or event space work, or gig poster work, or children's book illustration. It's work that you get to define your individual voice on, and you get to charge more, simply because your materials cost more, and because and a lot of times are hiring you not just because you're a traditional artist, but for your voice, because you are so unique that you are not just like every other digital artist out there. They could basically hire anyone if they hire you, but if you are a traditional artist, you set yourself apart from everyone else, which means you can charge a lot more, which means you'll probably get a lot more freelance work if you are more individual and you have something to offer that everyone else doesn't have to offer. Everyone else meaning other digital artists. Like, how many children's book authors are digital artists? Their books, honestly, in my opinion, don't look as good as traditional artists. And I don't think they sell as well either. They are not the award-winning children's book authors. I yield my time.
I agree with you when you say that there are so many projects that you could do, and I agree with you that if you're a traditional artist, you can have you have the pick of the litter as to any project that kind of shines your individuality. But if you're a professional who wants to be stable and wants to earn a lot of money, you need to find projects that require you to do digital, because those are the most stable jobs. Sure, you might have a gig to do a mural and it might pay big for the month, but then what about next month? What about the month after that? Whereas in like most digital jobs at firms that value digital art are going to be from design firms, animation firms, and advertising firms, and they all require you to do digital art, to design for movie posters, animation, and all of that marketing stuff. And it's very, very valuable for you as a professional because you get to have a stable job and you don't have to worry about where or when your next paycheck is going to come in. Boom.
There is no such thing as stability. When you say that, at least for artists, actually for anyone, period, end of story. Because if you are a digital artist, like you said, someone out of the womb will figure out how to do your job faster, better, cheaper than you. So, just because you think you're stable at your big fancy corporate animation job because you're a digital artist, some 10-year-old is going to take your job one day because they're better than you, faster than you, and just They're cheaper. They're cheaper than you. When you are a traditional artist, how many people there's no beading experience. There's no beading skill. Not everyone can do what you do. And that's where your individuality will earn your stability for you. Done.
We should move on to the next round. We should move on to the next round. That was what was the topic again?
Professional
That
work.
was professional work for artists. Which one's better? So you let us know in the comments which argument you think did the best, and I know you think it's me. So next topic, we are going to read from our pile, which has been reduced to 2. So time for you to choose one and then read it to me, and I will address it.
Okay. So our next topic is value. Which medium yields the most artistic value in both clout and cash?
Ooh. I spent a minute and 30 seconds sort of lampooning this, but I will take it seriously now. All right? I'm going to use the rest of my 3 minutes to take this seriously. Are you ready? Okay. What was the question again?
What's more valuable for clout
obviously for clout and cash, digital is really, really important. It's where we are at as a society, where we value things to be done digitally. We've been conditioned as a society through DreamWorks, Pixar, and Disney that animation can only exist in a CG 3D atmosphere. And it's been very, very kind of beaten into our heads that digital is special. It's slicker looking, it's sexier looking, the colors are richer, and there's just less, human error because of, I feel like I'm doing a horrible job arguing.
Fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it again?
What's more valuable for clout and cash?
Guys, don't worry. I have like 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. Okay. What's more valuable for a clout or come on. Like give me like one traditional artist who has more followers than the people who are doing digital now. I think digital is just simply where the hearts and minds of young artists are at right now because of how accessible it is, because of how easy it is for somebody to pick up their phone, download a drawing processor, and just work it. I think it's kind of like amazing that kids can just like use a thing like Procreate and make stuff. And I think it's because of that ease, and it's because of that accessibility, which has made digital so popular. Back when we were growing up, digital was seen as something very, very high quality because you needed a strong computer to run Photoshop, and you needed to have a tablet. You needed all of these crazy things and doohickeys in order to be able to just simply make art. Now everybody can join and participate in the act of making art through digital things like Procreate, which is very, very, very close to Photoshop. And if it's something that I had when I was very young, I would have probably taken huge advantage of. We are at a society, and we are at a place these days where digital is just, for better or for worse, valued more than traditional art, because traditional art throughout history is what we've been seeing for centuries and centuries, and this digital art thing is like the newfangled, just era that we're in right now. So I yield my time.
Okay. You saved it there.
I did.
Man. Okay.
I did. I was having a hard time, but then I really figured it out for you digital people.
Pulled through.
All right, ready?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Traditional artists, even though they cannot make as much work they can't reproduce their work as easily as digital artists can. A digital artist can easily make a print, however long it takes them to make that print, and then they will be able to mass produce that print, however many times, but a traditional artist can sell their original work for a lot more than a print can go for. There are going rates for prints, artist prints. If you are a small-time artist, anywhere between less than $10 and upwards from there to maybe maximum $30. It's very difficult for a digital artist to sell their print for more than $30 when an original piece of art is valued so much higher. You can buy an original piece of work for easily $100, $60. That's double the price of the most expensive, your average print. So from there, it goes on up from when you make oil paintings. Those easily go for thousands and thousands of dollars depending on the amount of clout you were able to achieve for your art. The top illustrators of the entire world right now are all traditional artists. They do not sell their digital work for a lot of money, and there is a reason for that. They make murals, they make giant oil paintings, they make sketches that they can a doodle can easily go for hundreds of dollars because it's an original piece of work. And that is not to say to discount the fact that when you are making a digital piece of work, sure, maybe you can get investors for your video game or for your animated project because it's in 3D and no one makes 2D animations anymore, but you can't really experience it. Not physically, not until it's done and it's in someone's home or in the theater. And even then, there's something removed from the art. You don't actually feel it and see it and experience it. You just kind of experience the storytelling or whatever. But with an original piece of art, with traditional art, there is something to be said of why we have museums. There's something to be said about why we have art exhibits and things like live music and stuff like that. There's something when you stand in front of a piece of original art to see the paint strokes, to see the impasto of the paint, to see the charcoal on a piece of paper, to really have this sometimes spiritual experience when you look at a piece of art. When you go into an exhibition, a 3D space, you feel what it is to be in that space, and that's not something digital art can ever really give you. And that is the value in traditional art that digital art just simply doesn't have, and in my opinion is a lot more valuable. And when you are able to give that experience to people, that gives you the kind of clout that you want, not the kind of, fake followers on social media that you get from your slick, shiny art.
Oh!
Because, sure, there are a lot of young artists who have a lot of clout on Instagram with their digital art. But the problem is, you put all those artists together, they don't have the clout of the top illustrators of the entire world who don't advertise their digital artwork. All the animation artists in the industry don't really quite have the clout as these household names that are independent and are illustrators that they don't know them because they work at Disney.
Like who, for example?
Like James Jean,
okay.
Like Cause, like every single, like Shepard Fairey, like Banksy, like every single fine artist / illustrator that everyone knows who they are, what their name is. Meanwhile, everyone else has to tack on to the Instagram, I work at Disney. I work at Titmouse. I work at DreamWorks. No one actually knows your goddamn name.
I will concede to you that yes, it is quite a thing, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that to have the original piece of artwork and to just be there and experience the thing, that's all well and good. But whether you like it or not, we are at a society and we are at a point where digital art is just valued more. We are at a point where you look at Instagram, you look at TikTok, you look at Twitter, they're all posting digital work. It's just simply more convenient. It's simply more simple for a lot of people to just make digital art than to just like sit there and make a laborious traditional painting. It's also unusual. It's also, to a lot of laymen, just unattainable. You see, like, people can see a normal drawing done with normal media and think that, like, that's something I can do, kind of. But then when they look at something done on Photoshop, they always go like, oh, how could I possibly do something like that?
Just because a lot of people can have access to it doesn't mean it's valuable. Just because a lot of people can do it, doesn't that devalue that kind of art? What value is fewer people are able to do it. It means that you are more talented than most of the other people in the population. You have a talent and a skill that not just anyone can do. And that is what makes traditional art more valuable than digital art. Because if any 14-year-old can make a digital art just as good as you, what makes your art different? What makes your art valuable? What makes it so special? It's not. I yield my time.
Okay, so let us know in round 4, sorry, excuse me. Round 4, who won in the comments. That was quite the feisty one. And then now I'm going to read the final question, the final round, and I think I know what this is. Yeah, okay. It's exactly what I think it is. Okay, are you ready, Janet Chan, for the final topic?
I'm ready.
All right. The final topic is fun. Which medium simply is pleasurable to use and enjoy? Give me 1 second to gather my thoughts here. Okay. As I was saying in the previous topic, everyone's very enamored and in love with the very kind of slick digital look because to the layman it seems unattainable. It seems like rocket science. Like, I know how drawing with a pencil and a marker works on a piece of paper. I'm not really sure how it works traditionally with your Photoshop or Maya or whatever it is. I think digital Photoshop, Procreate is so much more fun because of the sheer amount of possibilities it grants to you. You could make something that looks traditional. You could make something that looks very slick and digital. You can make something that looks like it's a oil painting using digital, and you can make something that looks like a CG rendered scene from a movie still with digital. It's just that versatile. So you have so much more available at your fingertips. That's one thing. Another reason why digital is so much more enjoyable is that you don't have to worry about like the mess and like the all the stuff that you have to take care of with traditional art. So let's say you're doing oil painting and you have to take care of the Gamsol. You gotta like dump that in a place that's eco-friendly, and you gotta like, dump your palette stuff and all of that. And that takes like literally every paint session, you have to spend like 30 minutes of pre-prep and like an hour to 2 hours post-prep, just like kind of just dismantling everything and washing everything. It's just a hassle. Whereas if you're just painting with Procreate, you just have everything there for you. And instead of mixing colors, you could just color pick. So that's why it makes it pleasurable. That's number 2. And number 3 is just like, it's really fun to use digital, just the stylus and the tablet, because it's very simple to use. The newest programs and the newest hardware allow you to use the pen tip to draw, and then you could flip the eraser over the eraser side, the other end, and then erase. It's just so simple and easy to use. It's at a point, I think digital, especially in the year 2020, is at a point where we're getting very, 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 very close to the sensation of drawing traditional. As much as that pains me as a traditional diehard to like say, it is true that the closer we are to more modern doohickeys to draw stuff with, the closer we are to replicating that sensation of drawing with a pencil or pen on a sheet of paper. Now, are we very, 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 very close to that? I think we are still like a few years ahead to getting it 1-to-1. But I think as of right now, we're close to creating the sensation of drawing on something traditionally digitally, which is crazy because we were never able to do this before. All we knew, all people in your and my generation knew, was to draw things traditionally. And now we're at the point that the younger generation, the people after us, get to just draw on tablets and surfaces that are almost as close, or if not as close to drawing traditionally. I mean, we were at a crazy stage of our collective art journey, and I think it's exciting times ahead. And I think digital just grants you the amount of just grants you a lot of opportunities to make really cool shit. I yield my time.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
You didn't reset.
Oops. Reset. Okay. Oops.
Oh, what happened? Oh.
Okay.
So, think back to when you were a child, when you would finger paint, when you would stick your finger in a bunch of gooey paint and just mash your hands everywhere on a piece of paper, and how enjoyable the sensation of pushing paint around with your hands is, or even when you would play with Play-Doh and the smell, that very specific, salty, sandy smell of Play-Doh, and what it is to feel it in your hands, and that sticky feeling in your hands that won't go away until you really wash it after you made, I don't know, whatever sculpture with your Play-Doh. That is fun. That is the beauty of creating traditional art, and that's what's so fun about it. When you are painting, you can smell the weird minty smell of gouache, or you can destroy some brain cells by sniffing oil paint.
Okay.
There's something the physicality of pushing paint and grazing your hand against the piece of paper with a pencil, and even the accidental mess-ups of smudging your artwork with your hand, or maybe the happy accidents that when you're doing watercolor, the water bled into a different color and it made this beautiful blending. That's something that is so fun and so enjoyable about traditional art that digital just can't replicate yet. There's something so removed about drawing on an iPad, drawing on a tablet, that you get to add sparkly effects with color dodge or layer styles or textures, but that's not as fun as just pushing paint around or drawing on a piece of paper. That's what we used to do as children for fun. How can drawing digitally, this weird feeling of touching the screen is not quite, you can't say that the smooth, slick surface of a computer screen or a tablet or an iPad is more fun than sticking your finger in some tubs of paint and mushing paint around. I think that's enough. I yield my time.
I mean, who wants to have charcoal and paint and pastel stuff stuck between your fingertips? It's such a hassle. I mean, yes, sure, at the very moment you're mushing stuff around, it's a very romantic thing to be able to spread paint and dirt around and really express yourself. That's fine, but then the amount of cleanup, the amount of time you have to spend washing your hands and then cleaning up your workspace, and oops, you drew some, you had some paint fall on the floor, and then it's spreading all over the place. You have to wash that, and then you're doing your traditional, and then as opposed to doing digital art, you could just do all of that. You could literally paint with your finger, and it's just as fun, kind of. I know the surface is cold, and I know it's dispassionate and it doesn't give a shit about you. But when you use digital art, it's just so much easier to just move colors around and move colored pixels around. I mean, I know. Oh, God. I was getting on a roll there. I forgot about time, but continue.
Um, okay. Just because there's cleanup doesn't make traditional art any less fun. That's part of it. It's a little bit ritualistic and like I broke.
16 seconds, 17 seconds.
Oh no. Even though there's cleanup, you just what outweighs each other? The fun or the cleanup? I argue that fun is the more cleanup there is, the more fun there is. Oh, I yield my time.
Okay. All right, that's the end of round 5. Let us know in the comments who you think won, or just simply what side you think you're on and which camp you want to, where you belong to, or whatever it is. That was a lot of fun. I hope I did a good job arguing for digital. I think I did a fine job. I think I did okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I somehow made a topic that is not controversial. certain subjects.
That's okay. That's okay.
Um,
So, I guess one more time, let's just talk about digital versus traditional real quick. I mean, what are your last thoughts on the topic? Just for people who are truly, especially young artists who are truly just tortured by the idea that like, who are traditional artists and who do feel very insecure that they can't do digital or vice versa. What do you say to those people?
Well, I can see the perspective from both sides because because of the age that we grew up in, we are somewhere we can remember what it was without computers and without the kind of technology that we have today. But we also remember what it was like to finally have that technology at our fingertips and the pros and cons of what it did to our skills. When I was younger, I wanted to, like, at the time, Final Fantasy, Avatar, that kind of hyper realistic 3D CG artwork was really in vogue. And I wanted to get into digital art as fast as possible because that was my dream, to work in video games and that kind of thing. But because tablets were not as common as they are today, my first tablet was a Wacom Graphire 3 from way back when. And I used it so much that it lost all its pressure sensitivity. Wow. And I still used it regardless. And I didn't get that until I think I was late middle school, early high school. So from as early as I can remember until then, all I did was draw on a piece of paper or paint or whatever. And that was a blessing in disguise because we compared to, as I grew older, only by a few years, the younger generation, kids just a few years younger than me, who grew up with access to digital art a lot faster than we had it, they were able to get a lot faster at digital art, a lot better at digital art than us. And it seemed from the outside looking in, from like if you judge a book by its cover, that they're better than your average artist, like your average traditional artist who learned digital art later on in life. But actually, I realized I would see them draw traditionally and they couldn't draw. And whereas I could easily do both, I could draw digitally because I picked it up early enough. And I spent long enough drawing traditionally to be able to just draw on a piece of paper if I had to. If that's the only thing I had. If my tablet died, if my iPad died, or whatever, my computer died, and I had to I had to draw, I could do it still. But at the same time, there are a lot of traditional artists who are crippled by the fact that digital art is so popular you kind of want to be a contrarian, or that they're a little bit intimidated by having to learn this whole other computer program just to make art that doesn't quite seem to look as good. I mean, why would it look as good if you're just a beginner at digital art compared to you've been doing traditional art forever? And you need mileage in both. Just because you're a traditional artist doesn't mean you neglect the digital side of art. Just because you're a digital artist doesn't mean you need to stop practicing your foundations and your traditional art skills. They're both really important. And just because you're better at one than the other doesn't mean that you are less than, or it makes you better than someone else, or worse than someone else, or superior, whatever it is. It's best to try to improve at all aspects of art, because this is a long life. You can master a great number of things. You don't put your value in whatever specific thing that you do, even if it's art. Just because we're artists, that's not all we are. We're individual people with a lot of interests and value outside of just the thing that we do.
Yeah, I think it's really important because for all the reasons that you said, and I think the trouble, like I mentioned before, is when you feel too comfortable with one and you absolutely don't want to touch the other simply because you're just not doing it enough. When you get to a point that a lot of professionals do, you and I are very specific, very special case because you and I were raised on doing traditional art and then jumped onto digital art, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for the most part.
Yeah.
Since it's the inverse these days, it's very easy to just start with digital and totally neglect your traditional stuff and start to kind of be more trepidatious about doing traditional art. The reason why that's not the best for you is that these things go hand in hand, and it's weird because you and I are different kinds of artists. You're more of a storyboard artist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a designer / I guess, I don't know, just overall designer, viz dev person. It's a struggle for me in my journey because I feel like I'm pressured to be good at a lot of things. I feel like I'm pressured to be good at prop design, perspective, character design, color styling, and just background painting and color in general. And the more you think about doing art in that way, that it's basically like you're playing Skyrim and you basically have all of these different segments that you could level up, and depending on where you invest your level up points is the kind of artist or the kind of character you want to be. And let's say Skyrim, that's the same thing with art, and it never feels, and though it is like, it's true that it is a long life, there is a lot of stuff you can do with it. So when someone is 18 and they've drawn on their computer tablet or Procreate or whatever it is, I think it's very, very important for you to realize that, yes, it's ridiculous and it's super awesome that you started your journey off on this digital medium, and it's very in vogue, like I basically talked about in our little debate. But you will become a great artist if you just sit there and do things traditionally and analog. And I know it takes so much more time. I know it takes more of an investment because of supplies and all that stuff. But these things go hand in hand. I feel like the best digital artists think in terms of painting. Like look at anything that Craig Mullins or any of your favorite painters do. Let's say Nathan Fowkes. On digital, there's nothing that they do digital that isn't a concept that they haven't learned already traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no method. There is no digital painting method. There is only a painting method.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The only difference is the medium. Once you guys start understanding, there is no digital. There is no traditional. There is only your idea and what you want to do. Then you start seeing these traditional digital avenues as just avenues. They're just things that you could use and things that you could like take advantage of. And once you start to get to know the pros and cons of digital and traditional simply by doing it a lot, there's no other way other than by doing both a lot, then you'll just have more opportunities to make really cool shit. And that's where I hope everybody gets to be at a certain point. Like we said in the beginning of this podcast, this whole thing of digital versus analog is an argument that everybody's having. It's not just us. It's people from, people like Tarantino and Christopher Nolan are arguing for the texture of film and the fact that it's basically magic to watch 24 frames just flutter in speed and suddenly make a moving image. And then there are people like James Cameron and David Fincher who just need a lot of takes, who just their method just requires more out of their actors. Their method just requires more out of the technical aspects that film and traditional media, it's too limited to provide. So and you see all the time, like for example, Foo Fighters came out with a all in studio album like 5-6 years ago, and that was like a big deal because everybody was doing things on Pro Tools. Like they made a huge stink about they started using tape again, which is so archaic compared to how especially people in R&B and rap are doing things. So this is an issue not about which side or camp you're on. It's truly an issue about what tool is best for the job. And it's very quaint and cute. Like I quickly took a look at how many YouTube videos there are about traditional versus digital, and there are a good amount. There are a lot. And I just hope everybody understands by the end of this podcast, and I hope we have a good argument as to like, this isn't an issue. At the end of the day, we're choosing. We're like, it's similar to choosing what's better, oil or acrylic. It's just it's
different tools.
It's different tools to make the same thing. And the sooner we get to that point, the sooner I hope that all of you young artists understand is that like this digital thing, if we can just figure out a way to mix digital and traditional together. I know I mentioned so many times before in the podcast, in our little debate about how like it's all limited to our imagination. I think the sky's the limit from there. I think if you're able to combine the two, it's a whole different beast, and it becomes like this whole argument becomes a non-issue at the end of the day.
Because if you've made it to this point in the podcast, this is our true feelings. Yeah. We don't care about digital or traditional.
No, not at all.
We're biggest fans of mixed media, which is a mix. I mean, it used to be just a mix of like drawing with a pencil versus drawing paint. But what we mean by this now is digital media mixed with traditional media. So that is, I think, in my opinion, our opinion, where the most innovation is going to lead from here on forth. So for me, now that I'm delving more into other art industries, now that I have chosen to leave the animation commercial arts industry, I have noticed that like there are artists right now, oddly enough, in this day and age, that are innovating what prints can look like art prints, where they are mixing digital with traditional. And then when they print the print out, they're adding embellishments, they're adding screen printed stuff. And all you art people, all you fine artists and screen illustrators, whatever, you're gonna get really mad at me because I'm gonna expose the secret that no one wants to expose. There's this thing called diamond dust that people are experimenting with now, and it's basically screen printing with the sparkly diamond dust material on top of prints and embellishing it to add this extra bit of sparkle, this extra bit of exclusivity and interest to print work, which I think is amazing, because who would have thought that art prints are suddenly going to be innovative?
Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to say right before we basically get into the mixed media topic, is how I feel about traditional medium. And for me, I think I would pay. I want to know how much you would pay. How much would you pay for a workshop sketch from Glen Keane? A 1 minute one?
Hundreds.
Hundreds? I pay 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd pay 1,000. I'd pay 1,000 for one of Glen Keane's workshop sketches, which is literally the equivalent of a sneeze.
Yeah.
Which is
does it in like
literally an equivalent of Glen Keane's sneeze. I would pay $1,000 just for that, because I want to pay $1,000 for all of Glen Keane's in the exact minute that he has, all of his decisions and how he laid them out on a single page. And that's what I'm buying.
All the experience that led up
exactly.
to that too. It's all the times, all the thousands of aerials and beasts that he had to draw in order to get that good, to be able to draw that drawing in
a minute or two with one sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm buying. At the end of the day, it's really cool that I get to buy a really cool painted image at any comic book convention. But if I'm going to pay top dollar, I'm paying for the strokes. I'm not paying for the piece of paper. I'm not paying for the ink printed on the piece of paper. I'm paying for the literal artist's strokes on the sheet of paper. And if there are only 20 of them, you best bet if it's someone as good as Glen Keane, I'm going to pay top dollar for them. Yeah. That's what I'm buying. And that's the thing. That's the reason why people commission us. That's the reason why people ask us to do original art. It's not that they want the finished product in the sense of like just the finished beautiful image. They want our choices. They want our essence in the sheet of paper. And I think that's fascinating. And I think that's something that digital will never, ever, ever, ever get.
Yeah. I mean, we've sold quite a few pieces of original art online. And, people can easily see, because we're recording video and editing everything, how much work and love goes into it. But people have like reposted or posted images of our work once they received it in the mail. And oftentimes people say that there's no way to really explain how beautiful a piece of art, original art that they received in the mail is, without actually seeing it for yourself in person. Like a photograph will never be able to do it justice. That's why, like, if you're not someone that frequents art museums or art exhibitions or goes to comic conventions and browses Artist Alley and really takes the time to flip through people's portfolios or bins of artwork, especially if they do original art, you're really missing out on quite an experience. To be able to see the physicality of the piece of art in your hands is so different, which is why, like, I always feel really happy when someone buys a piece of our original work on our store, because yes, it's very expensive, especially for if you are younger. It's not easy to own an original piece of our artwork, for good reason, because when you do receive it, it's going to be a very special experience in your hands once you receive it. Like, there's no picture you can ever take of it that will
do it justice.
Yeah. But again, mixed media.
All right, so let's get into the topic of mixed media.
Yeah, so I was talking about how mixed media is currently being one of the biggest innovations in the design world and diamond dusting and everything, embellishments. But also, it's starting to become a thing in animation as well, and corporate art stuff.
Well, let's talk about real quick. People are probably very confused as to what we mean by these embellished prints. Okay. People are very accustomed to prints literally being a printed, inkjet copy of whatever it is they saw on the internet. And that's all well and good. There's a whole industry for that. Mm-hmm. People make so much money just by doing that. Yes. But you and I have observed that there is a new thing of mixing both illustration, like typical analog stuff, with the digital reproduced stuff.
It could be as simple as making a digital piece of art, even printing it out and then painting on top of it. There are people that let's say you're making a landscape print. There are people who paint back into the print some brush strokes, so that when you're holding it, you're not quite sure if it's the actual painting or a print. But it could be as simple as adding a foil onto your paper, which I'm sure you've seen before. Foil print.
I think foil printing is probably the most common kind of step for digital people to step into that more analog, hand done, intentional thing.
Mm-hmm. But then there's, like I said, screen printing, and then screen printing with diamond dust, which is
that's new.
It's not new actually.
Oh, okay.
It's an old technique that was developed, I think, by Andy Warhol, and it was a technique that was popular in the fine art world. For some reason, disappeared into the ether and then came back recently. But a lot of like fine artists and illustrators who are in the know, they're trying to keep it a secret because they want to be able to provide something special that only their prints have. This, and it elevates your print from just a print to almost a fine art piece, and you can sell it for a lot more than just the $30 or $20 for a print, because it's this piece of art really that is, yes, mass produced, but at a much smaller scale, and it's so much more interesting and valuable to own rather than just something you got out of an inkjet printer.
So how old were you when you saw Toy Story for the first time?
Oh my god, I don't remember.
Yeah, so I remember I saw Toy Story at the El Capitan when I was 5 years old. And that was the very first time I saw a CG animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, between the time of Toy Story to onward, we've been doing, or Pixar has been doing CG animated movies, trying to look as photorealistic as possible, especially with movies like The Good Dinosaur, to try to make it look exactly one-to-one, as close to nature as possible. What's really interesting is we've been doing that for a very long time, and it's kind of shocking to me that the culture hasn't shifted to something at least different until fairly recently. So it's not like this concept is new. We've seen shorts. Funny that Disney has played around with it with Feast and Paperman, but like we've been seeing different kinds of animation that involve CG CG process with 2D sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, the best and most celebrated as of this recording right now, most celebrated one is Into the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can see how clearly that is inspired by, it's worked through CG, but then it's inspired by very 2D stylistic comic booky sensibilities.
Yeah.
And you're seeing with Klaus this feeling of like trying to mix digital with traditional sensibilities. And I think that's where the most innovation is happening. I think so we haven't watched a CG animated movie in a long time. I think the last one that we saw and we paid money to see was Coco.
Oh.
And
I guess.
Yeah, there have been like
Klaus.
I mean, we saw that on Netflix.
Yeah, but we still paid money for it.
I guess. But then, like, to actually pay money and sit down to see a movie
in a theater
that involves CG was Coco. Mm-hmm. And, like, Coco, as beautiful that movie is, yes, it's like a 20-year update to Toy Story.
Yeah.
It's kind of, like, at least for me, and I know for you, we're over it.
Yeah.
We're over things like we're over animation studios trying to mimic real droplets and dew on leaves. We're over that. We want to see something more stylized, something that breaks the norm. And I think we're at a point, especially with Spider-Verse, especially with Klaus, where it's just like, enough with CG animation. Please make it stop. Like, please, for the love of God, stop making these movies.
Yeah, I think the best I can describe it is we're fatigued because we don't get any variety. Anyone who kind of has any kind of knowledge about the industry will know that, like, the only way to get investors to invest in your animation project for a long time was it has to be a CG project. No one is going to fund a 2D animated project. And like from the minute I saw Paperman, from the minute I saw Feast, and this new blend of 2D, 3D, CG kind of animation, I knew that that was going to be the future. And then we saw it again, done really, really well in video games, indie video games.
That's where it's happening the most,
Yeah.
I've been noticing.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful and so new looking. And like, I know that the gut reaction for a lot of people, and a lot of people that we know on, like a lot of youngins that we know on TikTok, everyone thinks that we should go back to 2D. But then it's like we've been there, done that.
We can't go back.
We can't go back.
That's the thing. Like, we can't go back to 2D. We can't just like go back to like the 90s and just ignore all this amazing progress that we've done.
Like, it's always going to exist, especially in like TV animation. But there's this beautiful thing that we have yet to really explore a lot of with this more like 2D, 3D kind of look.
Yeah, like I think, as sad as this sounds, like you and I saw Into the Spider-Verse a couple weeks after, so everybody was hyped over it, and then you and I were like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. That's where this is where animation needed to go. And the saddest part is that like we were very meh about it because this was a long time coming. Yeah, like the funny thing about because we do conventions a lot, because we are like, I want every single professional artist to do conventions, because when you live inside your own little bubble inside these studios, you don't truly know what people want and what people like. And when we do conventions, it's like we have a finger on the pulse of society. Yeah, execs don't. They don't talk to people. We actually talk to people. Yeah, we ask them the questions that no one is asking the fans who consume the content. Like, for example, we went to Lightbox Expo and nobody asked why any of the audience was here other than us. Yeah. And it seems as though nobody was there for Disney. No. Nobody was there for Netflix. They were there to see their favorite artist. Yeah, everyone thinks that Lightbox is the next CTN, the next industry convention. It could be so much more than that. But there were a lot of our fans who came to see us, who normally typically see us at comic conventions. They have no interest in becoming a working professional. They have no interest in brand name studios or what. They don't care. They don't care about portfolio reviews. They don't care about any of this. They went to see their favorite artist that they saw on social media announce that they were going to be at this convention. They just thought it was a normal artist alley convention. And the thing about like having our finger on the pulse of like what actual like people who watch movies, people who read comics, people who what they really want is not more of the same. But I don't actually think they want more of the old either, which is what I think most people's gut reaction is. Oh, we should just do what works. We should just do Lilo and Stitch all over again. Like, we should just go back to that. Yeah, which is like, no. So I think we need to embrace innovation. And my point was, when we saw Into the Spider-Verse, it was like 4 years too late. Yes. We saw these styles. We saw everything. We predicted this. I was just like, there's nothing on Into the Spider-Verse that Sojima hasn't done on Persona 5. Yeah. Like, come on. Let's be real here. It's like we've seen everyone from independent artists to people at conventions making prints that look like this 4 years ago. They don't make prints that look like that anymore because it's a style, it's a look that has been done. And because animations take so long to produce and so long to make, by the time it came out, everyone in the animation industry applauded it for being new, and like it's very deserved. But at the same time, it was like, why is it that animation is always lagging behind every single other art industry? Like, it's really frustrating for us. There's so much style and so much just energy happening in the illustration sphere. It's kind of amazing how like I look at Onward and I'm like, dude, this is a DreamWorks movie from the 90s, from the early aughts. Mm-hmm. This is nothing new. Mm-hmm. And to see that that's happening still after the Spider-Verse thing that's come out.
I have a lot of gripes about this.
This would make for a great podcast unto itself, but I think it's really telling that you and we've invested so much in movies. You and I love movies, and we still love going to movies, and we don't ever go to animated movies because they're just not
I think
good
it
anymore.
takes a lot to make people like us who are like adults who watch animated movies. There are not very many of those.
And like
to convince us to not watch a movie.
And to the animation people, especially the older crowd who are like listening to us, like, you made us. We grew up with Toy Story versus Shrek and just watching the two studios duke it out until Disney finally woke up and got shit together and screwed with everybody.
Yeah.
But like that was an era 8 years in the making, and that's a time unrivaled now. Like the era between Toy Story 1 to, I would say, until Toy Story 3, everything after Toy Story 3, everything after that lost its verve. But you and I grew up at a time where there are kids just like us who aspired to be DreamWorks Pixar people. And the fact that we were raised on, like, if you're angry at us for not watching the movie you worked on, sorry, it's not Up, it's not Incredibles, it's not Shrek, it's not How to Train Your Dragon, it's not even Rise of the Guardians. You know what I mean? It's not like for as great as any typical animation movie that comes out now. So let's just say, I don't know, what's the last, like, let's say Zootopia, which is the last Disney movie that we saw. That is a B or C+ compared to the animated movies you and I grew up with. And the reason why we can't bring ourselves to go to animated movies anymore is because you spoiled us with such awesome shit when we were growing up.
It's one of those things where I feel like comic conventions are great. We love them. But, we know friends with peripherally the people that go from Disney, where I used to work, and all these other studios where we used to work or whatever, that go to them to promote their movie and to pat themselves on the back, not to listen to you fans.
Oh no.
And that's the most upsetting part, because when we go to conventions, it's a learning opportunity, and it's the only way we interact with our fans. And it's the most enjoyable experience because we get to know, if we just stayed in our own little bubble, we would never know what the fans truly feel. And this is the same problem in like comics or whatever, where like creators don't give a shit about their fans. And like, I see that all the time, where I just see people show up, pat themselves on the back,
and say bye.
And bye, thank you for... And then they think that all the praise in the media, all the fan reaction to whatever thing that they're promoting is real life. When it's like, no, you just went there to just have your people kiss your ring or whatever. And like, it really frustrates me because you're not getting a real view of reality. How many people are actually selling prints of your property? How many people are actually dressed in cosplay as your character? How many people actually showed up to your panel? Like, that's the thing that grinds my gears the most, because like when we know truly, because we sell prints, and we ask people who come by our table, people who, whether they like our work or not, we don't really care. We try to interact with them. We try to understand the perspective of a fan, and we never want to lose that perspective ever, because it humbles us, and it, like, I feel like we live in real life. Especially when you become a working professional, it's very easy.
Oh, you could lose your grip on reality very easily.
Yeah.
Especially in working in Hollywood. And I know we talked about this a lot, and I would love to talk about like our upbringing and as to why, like, I think people in Los Angeles, of course there are a lot of us who buy into the Hollywood stuff, but even the people who were raised here who buy into the Hollywood stuff are at least knowing and complicit, and who have a good idea as of how the machine works. People who are out of state who come here, it sucks because like I could see how like romantic it is to come to like the entertainment mecca of the entire fucking planet, but like to come here and to work here, it's very, very easy, especially for someone who, you know, who doesn't have the luxury of driving 20 minutes to Hollywood and to talk to all sorts of people. Like it's easy to get sucked into the kind of the allure and the lifestyle of Hollywood. But it really takes someone who's been here to know that like this is all just smoke and mirrors at the end of the day.
Like the reason why it was really, really, really hard, partly because of my personality, partly because I grew up here. You and I are both from California. We're from LA. I grew up in the suburbs. You grew up in
the urban city.
Yeah. And so like we have this LA ability to sense bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know, it's so strange. It's like we can tell who is not from here and who is from here. And it's one of the things that made it really, really hard for me to like work in Hollywood.
And it's, you know, oh God, this is like a completely other podcast.
Yeah.
But like it is really interesting how many people, and I live here,
Yeah.
how many people who don't live here work in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this to say that like digital versus traditional is sort of like a non-issue, and like we're at a point where as amazing, and I really meant it when I say that like digital is the zeitgeist. It's where everyone's head is at right now. I would love for the culture to shift to something beyond that, because like I explained before, I've been trapped with CG animated movies in cinema for the past 20 years, and it has hardly budged. It's barely budged now recently because of these certain movies. And I would hope that all of you young artists take the time to learn traditional art, because at the same, like I know it's really easy to like pick up Procreate, and I know there's a lot of hubbub about like if Procreate is a professional tool or not. Like, just in my opinion, disregard all of that and just make art.
I use mixed media for a lot of our products. It's how we were able to differentiate ourselves. Like everyone makes apparel, everyone makes prints, but I had been really exploring this way of making artwork that combines traditional artwork, drawings from my sketchbook, and digitizing it in a way, colorizing it digitally, to be able to really make our apparel and our merch a little bit more special. And I really think this is the future. Mixed media is the future of everything. And this is where I guess I make my prediction for the future. Because we live in this digital age where for the longest time there was so much emphasis put on CG animation, there's so much emphasis put on digital artwork and whatever, to the point that we've gotten to a place where a lot of people are fatigued by it. I really think that mixed media and physical artwork and physicality period for everything is going to be the future. They're like physical items and things are going to come back in a way that I don't think people realize yet, because everyone's still wrapped up in this digital age. It's something that I would like put money on for the future of innovation, the future of everything. And you can tell me that I'm full of shit in 10 years if I'm wrong, but that is my prediction for the future.
There has been a very weird pivot towards more physical stuff. I've been noticing that flipping culture has been all the rage these days. People used to start flipping shoes, and now they're flipping all sorts of stuff. And how long is it going to take for certain artists who do things traditionally, maybe half digital or whatever it is, for their artwork to be flipped in the market as well? And ultimately, it would be great if a certain artist was viewed as highly sought after as a brand, as like Supreme or something, to have their art, and we know a few Like we've seen a few James Jean's
Yeah.
original stuff, not like just first edition prints being, I don't know, flipped for
Oh yeah.
5 times the amount of money it was sold for.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I want people to get into digital, to get more into traditional and digital hybrids simply because of the crazy stuff, the crazy amount of money making to be had to have the very, very, very original thing out there in the market for people to buy or flip. It's pretty crazy.
Flip culture is particularly interesting. And to add to that, you know, back when illustrators were more a thing than they are now, people used to be big fans of individual artists / illustrators / whatever, more than like brands. More like...
Oh, and if we could get back to that,
Yeah.
that would be so crazy.
Yeah, I think we're on the way back to that because, you know, these big corporate brands are failing us, to be honest. And
Why is that?
they're monopolies. They're too big for their britches. The bigger you are, the harder you fall. And we're already like we predicted what happened to Disney in years ago. We would say,
Yeah,
we would
years
have
ago.
conversations that
Where we predicted that independent artistry would be more of a thing. I think we went
Yeah.
to the grad show and we were like, okay, we're dead set. This is it. This is the hill we're dying on.
And like, I don't care how big Star Wars is. I don't care how big Marvel is. There will come a day when their stocks will fall. And exactly what I predicted
It's happening.
happened. And, you know, like these big brands, it's sad that they have, you know, been on top for so long that artists have assigned their worth to the company that they work for. They live for their resumes and not to be great artists.
But our ancestors were famous because of the work that they made and the body of work that they accumulated,
Yeah.
not for the clients that they worked for.
No, they were, you know, famous was the word back then, but they had the clout because of who they were. Like, you know their names. You don't know them because they worked for Disney. You know them because you know them.
Yeah. You hired Sargent to paint your portrait in your, you know,
You knew
room.
Sid Mead because
Yeah.
he's Sid Mead.
Exactly.
You knew Drew Struzan because he just drew Struzan. But nowadays,
No one knows your name unless
No.
you're James or somebody.
Yeah.
For as big as you are in the animation sphere outside of the company you work for, no one knows your fucking name.
Yeah. And no one really cares about you. They only care about you because you
Work. That's right. They work for whatever animation studio. Yeah.
The minute you stop working for that studio,
They're like, who?
yeah,
Who are you?
Yeah. So it's sad. And I am hoping, I'm crossing my fingers, and I really see the trend going back there again. That, you know, our independent artists and illustrators and people will start supporting people for people.
Ideally, it would be
because they're part of a company like Disney.
Ideally, it would be nice to just remove the independent from artists and
They're
have
just
artists
artists.
become artists again.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But in order to make that happen, we're looking to you,
Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah. We love you guys. You guys are awesome and
Yeah.
supremely more talented
I
than
know.
any of us.
Yeah, I know you Gen Zers are going to take all of our jobs.
Yeah.
All of our jobs. Oh man, we should do a whole topic about Gen Z.
I know.
They're so amazing. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. We hope you had got a lot out of it. Let us know in the comments what you think about traditional and digital medium and where you are now and where you hope to be in the future.
Yeah, and any predictions for the future, which one you think is better, future podcast topics, whatever you want to talk to us about, just leave us a comment down below. Drop us a like over here. And check out our merch, honeyandabsinthe.com. It helps us out. If you want to keep the show going, please support us.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, Honey and Absinthe.
Yes, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.